All right, and this is our Regal Retreat. This is actually one of my favorite rooms, and the reason why it lies in the bathroom. So, peek into the bathroom. We have a clawfoot tub in this room.
Sorry, baby.
So come on in. This is our Black memorabilia suite. Comfortable.
The art is gorgeous. This is a gorgeous bathroom.
It's gorgeous. Hello.
Her daughter, Glynn Poe, and her husband, Glenn Poe. All right, so I'll start.
You guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Fantastic. So, reality. The reality of the reality is that probably 5 years ago, we started getting calls from production companies who thought that we might make a great subject for a reality show. And that didn't work out because, of course, 5 years ago, reality shows were even more ratchet than they are now. And even back then, you know, I was being asked questions like, so where do you like to shop? And I would say, Home Depot, Costco. And so that didn't work. And then we got a spate of calls from different production companies just before the new year, and we decided to sign with Lionsgate. They packaged a show and they took it to various networks, and OWN expressed interest, and we couldn't have been more thrilled because OWN and Oprah is on brand with Akwaaba. And we knew that it would be a show that would represent not only us personally well, but all of us very well. And that was really critical to us. And so we did a presentation reel, maybe a 25-minute presentation, and we got the call 3 weeks later that we got the green light. And it was amazing. It's an amazing opportunity. I'm still kind of in denial that this has really happened. But we shot 7 episodes, and that's how it all came to be. I had to bribe a few members of my family to do it. Yeah. But I've been an entrepreneur always. I was raised by a father who believed in multiple streams of income, and understanding that you know, when you are an entrepreneur, you have some real control over your own destiny. And so I've always had a gig on the side, as I always called it. And so I was an entrepreneur first. I guess the first real big business was, the bed and breakfast was first, right? Yeah, so this was our first bed and breakfast. We've had it for 22 years. And then we opened a restaurant. And then our daughter Glynn, I guess she was 8 years old, and she felt really left out because I pretty much paid attention to the B&B, and Glynn, my husband, paid attention to the restaurant, Akwaaba Cafe. I know y'all were there. I know that was all inside the house at home, and not all you could eat Sunday brunch. I know you were there. And then so Glynn at 8 said, you know, I want a business too. And so we really bought the block on Lewis Avenue between McDonough and Decatur, which is right on the corner, and tried to create a main street in the middle of urban America. And so Glynn wanted a business, and she didn't know exactly what kind, and she said, you know, I wanted cookies, and I wanted cake, and all these kind of things. And she said, oh, and there can be tea too, because she knows I like tea, high tea. And so I took her to Starbucks, and I said, you mean like this? And she said, yeah, like this. I said, well, you're gonna have a Starbucks, but we're not gonna call it that. You gotta pay to call it that. And so Glynn opened a coffee house at age 8 called Mirrors. And so we just believe in self-sufficiency. We believe that you have to have enterprise in our communities to be self-sufficient. And so that's what led us to do it. And it's our pride and joy. It really is the jewel in the crown. It's a former Woolworth estate, and we call it the Mansion at Noble Lane. And it is the setting for the show.
Which is what you see right here on these posters.
You wanna do that?
Well, some of the sacrifices we had to do with starting the end. The biggest one was allowing people to be inside the house with us. So right there, that cut out a lot of stuff. My boys coming over, hanging out, watching games, finished. Golf clubs in the hallway, nothing there. And noise, couldn't make any noise. So Glynn was used to that. You know, she was a baby then though, but she used to run all the time, so it was always kind of quiet down. But those were the main sacrifices for me, that kind of social life that I like to have. You know?
Yeah, I think we sacrificed almost a sense of normalcy in terms of like family life in that way too, because there's so many locations, which means my parents are always on the road. So we're lucky if we can get together and have like a family dinner and sort of catch up on everything. A lot of our work, a lot of our family time is spent within work,
Right.
which is kind of cool at the same time because we're like a really strong team. So it's a balance.
Yeah, I feel like I sacrificed self a little bit. I definitely had gotten to a place maybe twice in my career where I was running the magazine and running the business and being a good church woman, a good community woman, a good family woman, and I wasn't really being good to myself. And I really had to learn the lesson that before you give to others, you have to give to yourself. And I realized that I was actually jealous of my guests at one point. I would go and run the magazine, and I'd come home and I'd walk through the door and you could see all the glass, and I would peek through and I would see the guests sitting by the fireplaces sipping my tea. I could go soak in my jacuzzi, and you know, that was my bad attitude. I really had to physically fix my face to be able to walk in and say, how y'all doing? How's everybody? And so I've really learned, and it's still a work in progress, that you know, I have to be a guest in my life as well. And so I'm just grateful that I have a great team, many of whom you're going to meet on the television show, but one who's in the room, Melody, is my Director of Operations and Human Resources. She gave you guys a little tour. And so, you know, they are helping me to be able to step away a little bit so that we can try to enjoy the fruits of our labor. So I would say that was a sacrifice. But I was not going to sacrifice, I don't think I sacrificed my family. My daughter learned how to do a board meeting as early as age 3, you know, and you know, so it's the only life I know, and I'm grateful for it. If anybody would say, like, you know, that knows me, they're like, well, who is she? What's she like? And the number one thing everybody says is down to earth, accessible, and accessible is real. And I always want to be that person. You know, I want to be the person that still, I love my business. I want to open the door for you. I don't have a problem unclogging the toilet if it's clogged up. You know, I still want to make your breakfast. So I don't really know what to expect, but you know, I think that life is full of uncertainties, and I'm just, you know, just see what happens. You know, Melody told me this morning, she said, you know you can't be taking megabus to DC, right? I'm like, why not? Why can't I do that? So, you know, it's, so,
The helicopter.
I think, you know, I think that That's it. I mean, what I love about this show is that it is truly unscripted, and it is the reality of our lives. It really, I've watched reality shows, and I'm going, I know somebody told her to move her neck like that, and somebody told her to do this, or what have you, and no one had told us to do anything. And if they did, on a rare occasion, they said, okay, and you say it again, I'm like, not right now, because those people really need breakfast, and I'm taking a plate to the table. So, I don't know what to expect. This one, on the other hand, he's just like, do I have to do this? Up here, because Glynn is extremely, extremely private, and so I don't know.
It's going to be what it's going to be.
Maybe share with them your experience when you saw Pico Bryson.
Oh, well, that's my man right there. I mean, we go way back.
Perks, right?
We go back.
Right. Yeah. What you guys didn't see, who saw the first show, is that the moment that people walked through the door, Glynn ran down the steps and started singing Pico Bryson songs to him, and people
And
was
they
like,
sing together.
and then they start singing together, and then people was like, boy, you got some big ones, you singing my music to me, and of course, I guess in TV world, those of you who know it, you got to pay a lot of money for that little bit of song to be sung, so I guess that's why I didn't show up, but I wasn't just rolling my eyes for no reason. He really went overboard. So when we opened the bed and breakfast, I really didn't have a script for how to even do this work. I don't have any hospitality background or anything like that. I enjoyed staying at bed and breakfast as a guest. And so I said, well, I'm just going to create it in our own image. So this is a Victorian mansion that was built in 1860. And I believe from a design perspective that African textiles and Africana, if you will, blends very nicely with Victoriana. And so that's what I've done throughout. So you have original moldings, but you have these hand-carved doors, from the continent. And so I wanted that. So I thought, well, I need a word. I need an African word. And I had gone to a restaurant many, many years ago, remember? And it was called Akwaaba. And I remember it sounding so lyrical. So then when I discovered that Akwaaba means welcome, I went, that's it, right? And then one more step, I thought, oh, and it starts with an A, which is going to make me first on most lists. I love that because it's usually alphabetized. So A, Akwaaba, what it means, the sound of it, the relevance of it is how I came to that. Now, I absolutely feel like the biggest sham because I have never been to Africa, okay? Yes. And the problem is that it means so much to us to make that pilgrimage, to all three of us. Yeah. And so we keep attaching the pilgrimage, if you will, to a major occasion, a milestone occasion. And because it's a milestone occasion, that means a million other things are happening. So it just doesn't happen. First it was when you turned 16, then it was when you turned 18, then it was when we were married for 20 years, then it was when we were married for 25 years, then it was when you guys graduated, and it just hasn't happened. But it will, it will.
Can we make it?
And yeah, so it's just, who's gonna buy? They become our family. And sometimes that's tricky because we actually live in the ends. So now, these are people who are in your home, not just in your business. They are totally in your life. So we have to make sure that, okay, do they jive well? Like Glynn likes to have like family cookouts, and he loves to be on the grill. And these people, these staff people, they come and they're part of our family when we have that downtime. So you can't, if you don't click with somebody, then that doesn't work. So I really have to go with a gut instinct about, how they fit for the business, how they fit with the family, how they're gonna fit with the guests. And I need them to be interesting, and curious. That's really critical. It's also a true one, but I'm just motivated by so many people. I think the one obscure one that just, I don't know how Mary McLeod Bethune became somebody I looked up to. I went to her house and I learned about her, and it's hard to say. I could say my mother, I could say lots of things, but to be honest with you, the number one woman that inspires me is the one that's sitting next to me. It's really true. And I've told her this before, it gives me faith that, we're gonna be all right. We are gonna be all right because we have wonderful young people who are the next generation like her. And, we just have a really great time together. And I see her her determination, I see her passion, and you know, that fuels me, you know, so we can feed off of each other in that way. First, you know, we have to be comfortable having a conversation about money, right? You know, when I was growing up, my dad would always say, if I asked him for some money, whatever, he'd say, you know money don't grow on trees. But then he put a period at the end of that sentence, and then he never told me where the money grew. So how was I supposed to know? So very much so, we have to have that conversation. We have to encourage it from, you know, let's go back to the lemonade stand. Let's just encourage that so that there's an understanding of what that's about. You know, I would work the magazine and work the business, and Sundays was kind of our bonding time, mother-daughter time. And we used to always go to movies. And remember, we go see all the things that my husband wouldn't go see, with, you know, all the romantic comedies, all of that. And inevitably, before the middle of the movie, I'm this snoring and all, drool, and she'd get so embarrassed. And finally she said, Mom, why don't we just get like a membership to Blockbuster? I'm telling her my age now. Like, we just get a Blockbuster membership and we can watch the shows at home. And then if you fall asleep, it's all good, you know? So she completely understood the life of it. So we have to expose young people to the life, the rewards, and yes, some of the challenges and some of the hardships of doing just that. My grandfather started Washington, D.C.'s oldest black-owned business. And I never knew him. He passed when I was a baby. But I certainly knew his business. It was called Greenwood's Transfer, Moving and Storage Company. So if you talk to anybody in D.C., they know that business. And I grew up watching my father put on overalls every day and drive a truck, a huge truck, with my name on the side of it. And they had a government contract with the D.C. Public Schools. And every time the truck would come and pull up to deliver the stuff at the cafeteria or furniture, whatever, I come running out to see, is that my daddy? Is that my daddy on the truck? I'd be so excited and proud. People say, that's you? You got anything to do with that business? I'm like, yeah, that's my name, right? However, I also never really knew and understood what challenges my grandfather faced and what he had to go through to start that business. And so I never even knew that it was on Black Enterprise's list of top 100 businesses in the 70s. None of that. Until I came home, I graduated Howard, I was here in New York, and I wanted my diploma to hang on my office wall. And I went rummaging through that drawer. Y'all know that drawer, where the report cards are, the newspaper clippings, the Bible, all that stuff. And I'm going through there, and I found an old yellowing Washington Post newspaper with the headline that said, oldest black business grew with effort. And I read the story of my grandfather. And I went running through the house looking for my father, saying, why didn't you tell me? He said, what are you talking about, fool? You see me getting this. I said, but I didn't know, you know? And what it came down to is that, you know, a lot of our story is tinged with pain. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, then I had to learn about how a black man who always paid his bills on time, who got a government contract, didn't get paid till next 60 days, when the Eagle had to fly every Friday, didn't really add up. You know, so I learned so much about that. And so that's the kind of thing that I believe that my daughter has had a chance to live and hopefully embrace. And now y'all know that's a big storyline. It's a big world line. It's real for us. It's really real for us. And her agents are here for her work that she's working on, for her writing, and I know she is a brilliant, brilliant writer. I am so encouraging of that, but I also don't want her to let this go. Because, you know, I have to retire at some point, you know, and I need her to just be ready to step in some way, and I think we're both creative enough to figure out what that way might look like. And I know I've been the worst example for her because she looks at my life. I'm in 3 states in 1 week. You know, I got lots of miles on a pickup truck and a little Jeep. And it's the life I've chosen for me. It's not the life she wants. So we have to craft it differently so that she can embrace her passions but still have one eye and one hand on this, because guess what? Hopefully there'll be another one after her with our same last name. And I want that to run out there. That's my name. That's me. That's Akwaaba. I want that child who is yet to be born to have that same type of prize.
I'm not rushing that either.
No, I wasn't rushing it. No, I'm just saying. We're talking about legacy. We're talking about legacy. I didn't say tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Or I don't know how I could have 8 more. I could have 8 guest rooms if they would just leave.
We are like
If they won't move.
Yeah.
we hood rats. Like let's die.
We got another building, real estate right down the street. I'm like, let's move down the street. But no, so yeah, this is your favorite? Okay.
Because of the neighborhood also.
Yeah.
We raise a family here.
Yeah.
About entrepreneurship and business.
You know, the show is just filled with all of that. It's about, you know, how to balance your life, you know, your personal life and your professional life. It's about how to get out of your comfort zone, enough to take a chance on you. You know, if you're gonna invest your money in the stock market or real estate, which I love, the number one thing you should invest in is you. You know, and I think too often we don't take a chance on ourselves. And so a lot of that comes down to also, who do you surround yourself with? Who's sitting on your front row, you know? And if you don't have the people who are going to like fuel you and not drain you, who are going to remind you of your greatness when you're in a forgetful mode, because we all get there, then you're gonna have a hard way to go. You know, it's like if you look around the room, you always look around the room, you look around the world, look around your life, and you go, I'm in a way, and I'm like, I'm looking right here because you're smiling and you're nodding your head, and I'm feeding off of that energy. And so that's what you need to know. I mean, so there are lots of messages. There are messages of, you know, you don't have to be a superwoman. You know, there's messages about communicating well with your life partner. There's storylines about, you know, loss and how, you know, you grieve for a minute, but then you just kind of you got to keep it moving, you know? You're going to have disappointments in life and you go, you know what? You know, I do this all the time. I don't know. I was like, what am I wearing today? I don't know. Am I supposed to look like a lady? Am I supposed to look hip and young? You know, what is it? You know, and we tear ourselves down, don't we? We look and we go, oh, but you're fat and you're this and that. And then I've always been one to say, like, find a good thing. You know, I don't do negativity. Right, so like this didn't work, but your hair is working, girl. Whoa, and she beat her face, and I will boost myself, and so the self-esteem piece, I think, comes through loud and clear, and to be your absolute authentic self, and to know that that self is good enough, that you're always enough, you know, and don't shortchange yourself. So there's lots of messages.
I think I've been being groomed to take over this business my whole life, just having grown up in it. But at the same time, my mother has also given me so much room to explore, my parents, so much room to explore my own interests and my own passions. After college, I went off to the Peace Corps. I lived in Cambodia for 2 years. I was 2 years away from this business, and it gladly let me walk away. So it's been kind of difficult now to think about how I've sort of designed a whole world for myself, and I have to remember, like, wait, Akwaaba has to factor into this in some way, especially now that I'm old enough to really take more of a responsibility. When I was young, I could serve some plates, I could wash some dishes, help my mom make a few beds, but now I'm like making breakfast for a house of 15 people on the weekends. I'm working weddings. Wow. I'm consulting people when they want to have baby showers here. Like, I'm kind of doing it all, and it's a tricky balance for me because it's not my passion. And I'm sitting next to this woman who's speaking so passionately about this thing. There's no denying how much love she has for what she's built. And it's difficult to hear you talk about living a life with passion if this is not my passion, kind of. You know, if I'm gonna go by what you're saying, that would mean that I would do like but at the same time, you know, what's been actually really the most interesting thing that's come out of this experience with the show is that I finally have understood, like, the magnitude of this empire and the importance of legacy. Watching the way that you all are responding to just being in this space the comment that like we are so dope. Like I could get down with all of that. Like that's like my life charge is to like make Black people feel celebrated. To as a writer, I want to write narratives where we feel like we're reflected. So you know when Black people come to Akwaaba, they feel seen, they feel home. So they feel at home. So. That's why we're gonna work out something. I don't know if I wanna like make pancakes per se, but I'm hoping I still have like a little more time before I have to decide what exactly the role is going to be, but I'm open.
Wow, thank you for asking that question. I'll take that, right? I think they're recording all of that.
Why'd you go there? No, it's always been easy. I knew when I first met, actually, she gave me such a charge when I first met her, when we met, when we first met a long time ago. And what I've realized through the years, and sort of jive wanting to be with the business a little bit, and helping out, that this is really Monique's passion, and I wouldn't want to get in the way of that at all. And it's easy to support. I have no problem supporting her. And that's why it's always just been easy for her. It's never been there's been some boxing a little bit every now and then, but for the most part, not literally boxing. But I just get out of Monique's way, man. I see she's on a path or something, and you need some help with that. All right, you good? Good. All right, go ahead. I'm right here if you need something. That's how it's been able to work out for me. I would tell a guy never to be intimidated by a powerful woman. It's not the way. It just really isn't the way. You won't be able to achieve anything if you just can't. That's why you're lucky. You're lucky. That guy's lucky. I mean, I think I'm smarter than her because look. I'm really smart.
I will piggyback on that too, because when I met Glynn for the first time, I knew he was the one, because he just, there was no pretense around, the macho thing or anything like that. And from very early on when we started, when we got married, I didn't change my last name as a journalist. I built a byline with Greenwood, but so people would meet him and they would go, Mr. Greenwood. He'd say, hey, what's happening? And there was no hesitation to respond to being called Mr. Greenwood. There was nothing in him that felt like that's a problem. And so I was like, right, this is good. This is a good thing. Because you have to know who you are and what you are, and I know I'm an alpha woman, and I get it. And so, yeah, you have to find the kind of guy that can handle that, and I'm lucky that happened for us. What was the other question? I feel, I have reneged, let me just say that. Yeah. I have reneged big time on a promise that I made to my husband many, many, many years ago. We had this plan, this life plan, and the goal was that we would retire at age 50. That was all we wanted to do. I think we said it maybe when we were 35. We both had parents who worked until they really couldn't work anymore. And so they could never really enjoy the fruits of their labor. And so we said, that's not gonna be us. So we're gonna press, and and at 50, we're out, okay? That was always the goal. And so, 50 came. And Glynn left his job. He was a broadcast engineer, and he put in his resignation. He's like, okay, I did it, I'm done. You ready? And
now I'm making beds.
So I totally reneged, because at the very moment that we were supposed to be kind of pulling back, I ramped up, because the mansion at Noble Lane happened. And so, so when you ask me that, it is my nature to always ask the question, what's next? And I don't believe that I could have another bed and breakfast that I actually own and operate, because it is a hands-on business. And so I think the brand, though, has the opportunity and the possibility that's endless. And so I'm gonna talk to my sister over here, who's Nigerian, and she's gonna open up in, Ghanaian, and so, and Melody over here, we're gonna help her get launched in Richmond, because that's where she is. And so I do believe that there's room for expansion in a franchise model. where the brand can continue. I mean, what I'm most looking forward to, you know, and I hope that the show can help be a launching pad for that, is like those glasses you're drinking from. They should say Akwaaba. You know, the tablecloths, the bed sheets, all of that, pillows, all of that, they should say Akwaaba. So, you know, to me, this is a platform that helps further that goal, because it's a way that you can use your creative energy as well as your brand to expand without having to make another bed or make another pancake. So to me, you know, we need to leverage what we've done and really exploit the brand in product development. That would be a goal. Living life to my nth degree, and that I'm doing something to help other people do the same. That's what matters to me. I really, really am committed to making sure that people don't put their life on layaway. And just, I know you don't even know what that is. That's okay. You know what layaway is? That, I don't know. But you know, I really am. I'm committed to that. And you know, some people look and say, well, you know, you've had restaurants and you've had B&B and you were the editor at Essence, and it seems disjointed, but it's not. It's all connected to empowering us to be our best selves. That's it. There's one connection. Quite simply that I made a mark and didn't leave a stain.
All right, and this is our Regal Retreat. This is actually one of my favorite rooms, and the reason why it lies in the bathroom. So, peek into the bathroom. We have a clawfoot tub in this room.
Sorry, baby.
So come on in. This is our Black memorabilia suite.
And then we opened a restaurant, and then our daughter Glynn, I guess she was 8 years old, and she felt really left out because I pretty much paid attention to the B&B, and Glynn, my husband, paid attention to the restaurant, Akwaaba Cafe. I know y'all were there. I know that was y'all inside the house at home, and not all you could eat Sunday brunch. I know you were there. And then so Glynn at 8 said, you know, I want a business too. And so we really bought the block on Lewis Avenue between McDonough and Decatur, which is right on the corner, and tried to create a main street in the middle of urban America. And so Glynn wanted a business, and she didn't know exactly what kind, and she said, you know, I wanted cookies and I wanted cake and all these kind of things. And she said, oh, and there can be tea too, because she knows I like tea, high tea. And so I took her to Starbucks, and I said, you mean like this? And she said, yeah, like this. I said, well, you're gonna have a Starbucks, but you're not gonna call it that. You gotta pay to call it that. And so Glynn opened a coffee house at age 8 called Mirrors. And so we just believe in self-sufficiency. We believe that you have to have enterprise in our communities to be self-sufficient. And so that's what led us.
Glynn Poe and her husband, Glynn Poe. All right, so I'll start.
You guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Fantastic. So, the reality of the reality is that probably 5 years ago, we started getting calls from production companies who thought that we might make a great subject for a reality show. And that didn't work out because, of course, 5 years ago, reality shows were even more ratchet than they are now. And even back then, you know, I was being asked questions like, so where do you like to shop? And I would say, Home Depot, Costco. And so that didn't work. And then we got a spate of calls from different production companies just before the new year, and we decided to sign with Lionsgate. They packaged a show and they took it to various networks, and OWN expressed interest, and we couldn't have been more thrilled because OWN and Oprah is on brand with Akwaaba. And we knew that it would be a show that would represent not only us personally well, but all of us very well. And that was really critical to us. And so we did a presentation reel, maybe a 25-minute presentation, and we got the call 3 weeks later that we got the green light. And it was amazing. It's an amazing opportunity. I'm still kind of in denial that this has really happened. But we shot 7 episodes, and that's how it all came to be. I had to bribe a few members of my family to do it. Yeah. But I've been an entrepreneur always. I was raised by a father who believed in multiple streams of income, and understanding that you know, when you are an entrepreneur, you have some real control over your own destiny. And so I've always had a gig on the side, as I always called it. And so I was an entrepreneur first. I guess the first real big business was the bed and breakfast was first, right? Yeah, so this was our first bed and breakfast. We've had it for 22 years. And
Oh, the art is gorgeous. Oh my God. This is a gorgeous bathroom.
It's gorgeous. Hello.
Her daughter